does the Adam and Eve story not break your number 3 rule though about once upon a time?
Okay, good. Very good. I like you. You're a thinker, man. It's an honor to talk with you, sir. Okay, you're right. Genesis 1 and 2 are really hard. Why? Because the literary style of Genesis 1 seems to be poetry. What do I mean? Oh, Cliff, that's just a cop-out. No. Wait a second. What does God create on the first day? And what I want you to watch is the parallelism between day 1 and day 4, day 2 and day 5, day 3 and day 6. All right, I'll read it for you. Now watch the parallelism. Because remember, Hebrew poetry is not words that rhyme at the end of a line like our poetry at times is. Okay? Instead, Hebrew poetry is parallelism, where ideas are put parallel to each other, and you see that consistently through the text. Okay, so Genesis 1. First day, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Okay, what does he create on day 4? The sun. Okay, what does he create on day 2? Let there be an expanse between the waters to separate water from water. So God made the expanse and separated the water under the expanse from the water above it. That's day 2. So what does he create on day 5? Fish for the water, birds in the air. Clear parallel between day 1 and day 4, day 2 and day 5. Day 3, what does he create? He creates dry land on day 3. And on day 6, he creates animals and human beings. So you see the parallelism there. That is why to say Genesis 1 is a precise historical account, I don't think is honest. Is there some history in there? Yes. But how much and exactly what? I do not know. Because the language is vague. And so when the language is vague, I got to be honest and say, guys, the language is vague. Now we do know that when Jesus says, "I am the door," he's not claiming to be 2 pieces of plywood slapped together. We do know when Jesus says, "I'm the light of the world," he's not claiming to be a 100-watt light bulb. But that's easy metaphor, right? You can see that. You can also see his use of hyperbole. If your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. For it is better to enter heaven with 1 hand than with 2 hands to go into hell. But he's not literally saying, take out a machete and slice off your hand. He's using an extreme form of speech to make a point. Does that make sense? Yeah, hyperbole, exactly. Man, it's good talking with you, sir. You're thinking, man. Thank you.
I just break all 3 rules, though. You broke 3 rules and 4.
Whoa.
Just like how...
But what were those? Wait a second. Wait, think with me. Come on now. You're good. What were those 4 tests to determine what? The historicity of a document. And we were talking about the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And those 4 tests, when you apply them to the Gospels, show that the Gospels are historically reliable. And you're right. Genesis 1 and 2, which you raised very well, is not history.
Once upon a time.
No, it's not. It's not fairy tale. It's poetry, which is different. Okay? You've got history, you've got mythology, you've got poetry, you've got apocalyptic literature like the book of Revelation, highly, highly symbolic, some weird images. And those are different types. And then you've got scientific literature. So you have many different types of literature, right? And you got to learn to respect literary style, otherwise you're going to flunk out of this place. If you read Shakespeare the same way you would read a science textbook, you will flunk.
But one's facts, one's
a play.
A play.
Exactly. Created in the mind of Shakespeare, right?
So, to an extent, what makes that anything different than the poetry that you're reading and the scriptures that you read? What's the difference in both?
Okay, good. You better read Shakespeare fairly, and you better figure out what's he trying to do. And obviously, he's trying to put together a play. It's very entertaining, and he's trying to make some points, I think. Moral points, mainly. Doesn't he?
Yeah.
Okay. So that is didactic teaching, moral teaching. It is not a description of how physical process called science works.
There's no science in the Bible.
Thank you. That literary style, you're absolutely correct, sir. That literary style, scientific literature, is nowhere in the Bible. Which means if anybody says to you, science contradicts the Bible, you know that's very sad. It shows they don't understand science and they've not read the Bible.
It does kind of contradict the Bible.
How?
It's a total contradiction of science. Or of the Bible, excuse me.
Good. I am a follower of Christ. I believe in evolution as a process, not as an origin. You're right. Evolution as an origin, the idea that there is no God and there's just a physical process that happened by chance and chance mutations and natural selection and we come about, that obviously contradicts the Bible. But evolution as a process, that life evolves, that is not a contradiction of the Bible, because the Bible never answers the question, what process did God use to create? It's impossible for evolution as a process to contradict the Bible. Of course, evolution as an origin obviously contradicts the Bible, no question about it. Exactly. And the Bible says, in the beginning, God, not in the beginning, hydrogen. Man, it's an honor to talk with you. You track, and I respect you.
Some Christians do weaponize the Bible against people who
Yes.
are, like sexism, homophobia,
Yep.
racism.
Yep.
And I don't understand that at all because, especially with sexuality, God said He loved everybody, and love is love.
Yep.
So why do people feel like people who love different are less than, and that they're going to hell? But that makes no sense. That contradicts because God loves.
Okay, good.
It's a person of love.
All right, let me ask you something. I'm a follower of Christ.
Yeah.
I am married to Sharon.
Okay.
I find these two women gorgeous.
Yeah.
If I follow Christ, is there something wrong with me trying to seduce them?
Yes.
What's wrong with that? Is that not judgmental for you to say, yes, there's something wrong with you trying to seduce these two women? Why? Why is it?
I mean, you're committed to one person.
You're committed to one person, yeah. But guess what? I really love them. And so I want to seduce them. So are you going to tell me that's wrong? And if so, why?
I was meaning towards like a man loving another man or a woman loving another woman.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
Great point. I love my wife, Sharon. I'm committed to her, and I'm going to be faithful to her. And I can love her, and I can love her. It doesn't mean I have to have sex with them.
Right.
Right? Okay, a man can love a man. I love a lot of guys. But it doesn't mean I'm going to have sex with them. Why? Because God created our sexuality to be enjoyed within the context of a lifelong commitment between one man and one woman till death parts them. And that is why, for me to try and seduce these two women is evil on my part. Does that mean I'm a piece of dirt? No. It means I am valuable because I'm created in the image of God, but I'm a sinner, and I better face that. And what is sin? It is violating the purpose for which God made me. And God did not create me to have sex with every good-looking pair of legs I can hop into bed with.
No. But people do love, their own sex. Like,
Yeah.
I
love guys.
Like, I'm not attracted to other women, but I know women can love another woman.
Yeah. Good.
Like, I don't think it's a sin. It's love.
Okay. The challenge is, who defines love?
It's all down to the person. It's between two people.
Okay. I would partially agree. But what is love? Love is not infatuation. I find these two women gorgeous. I want to have sex with them. That is not love. Love is, I care about you so much that I'm going to work for your well-being. To the point of being willing to forgive you if you hurt me, to the point of being willing to sacrifice for you, because I love. You see, Jesus defines love differently than our culture defines love. To love is for me to actively wish her well-being, for me to actively wish her well-being. To love means to be able to make a promise to my wife. I will be faithful to you till death parts us. And guess what? I can keep the promise or I can break the promise because I got a free will. And now I better ask God for the grace and the strength to keep my promises, because keeping your promises is a big part of what it means to be a human being created in the image of God. Okay, does that make any sense or not?
It makes sense. It's, I just know a lot of people who do weaponize it are the same people who are, sinning. Well, everyone sins.
Right.
But like, I don't know how to say this.
It's okay, you're doing well, keep going.
It's like they'll go cheat on their girlfriends and then condemn another person for loving someone that may not be conventional. But
Good. All right.
that's what really irks me. Is that-
Yes. And it irks me also. Okay? So here's how we do it. I have a lot of friends who are adulterers and adulteresses. I have even more friends who are into fornication. I got a bunch of friends who are homosexual and lesbian. Every single one of my friends is just like me. Valuable because we're created in the image of God, and sinful because we've rebelled against God's will to do our will. Because why? Because my choice is supreme. It's all about choice. So just because I'm born with a natural drive to do something doesn't make it right. When I was 4 years old, I played in the sandbox. I picked up a metal truck and dropped it right on the head of a playmate, and it hurt. Nobody taught me to drop metal trucks on people's heads. I did it very naturally. I am born with a readiness to sin factor in my life, and I proved it by dropping a metal truck on a playmate's head as a 4-year-old. Yes, ma'am.
What would you say to someone that says, well, if God is so loving, then why would he send somebody to hell?
Good question. My answer to that is, God doesn't send anybody to hell. Human beings choose to go to hell. What does that mean? God created us to live together with him. But because he gave us a free will, we do not have to live together with him. We can live separate from him. If I choose freely to live my life separate from God, he's not going to haul me into his presence, into heaven, against my will. The only reason there's a hell is because God takes our decisions seriously, and if we want to live our lives separate from him, he permits that. Now, how have I not answered your excellent question?
Well, what if they were like, well, why do I have to go to hell specifically? Why can't I just
You bet.
not live or exist after we die?
You bet. Great question. The central nervous system that you have and that I have, we get a lot of pleasure from it. It's a gift from God. Taste buds that allow us to enjoy food. It's a gift from God. Rational minds that we can use to think and reason. It's a gift from a rational creator. The artistic ability to be creative. A gift from the creator. Conscience, the ability to distinguish between good and evil, and then to try and live a good life and respect people and have deep, meaningful relationships. It's a gift from God. Now, when we choose to live our lives separate from God, we are separating ourselves from the giver of all those good gifts. And the reason that hell is going to be so horrible is because it is separation, total separation, from the good God who gives us good gifts. Now, I love parties. That's a gift from God. The ability to be gregarious and have meaningful friendships. And so a lot of guys say to me, well, I'm looking forward to going to hell because that's where all my buddies are going to be and we're going to have a keg. But you see, that's forgetting something. It's forgetting that your ability to party and to celebrate another human being and to enjoy another human being is a gift from God. And in hell, you're going to be separated from God. There will be no enjoyable parties.
In my opinion, if God in Christ is perfect, and like me being a Christian, how am I supposed to continue living, trying to attain being good if I'm never going to reach that perfection? Sort of like how, Paul says, like those people who question that, like, should we continue sinning so grace might abound, or should we, not pursue goodness, because if we're already going to be made perfect in the end, what's the point?
Okay. It's very, very similar, the answer, to getting an education here at Texas State. If you get a BS in biology here at Texas State, do you know everything there is to know about biology? But you know enough to keep going, don't you? If you get a PhD in biology, do you know everything there is to know about biology? No. You do postdoc work in biology, do you know everything there is to know about biology? But you know enough to keep going. If anybody says to you, I know everything there is to know about biology, they're lying through their teeth. Okay? But you know enough to keep going. Well, it's the same thing when Jesus says to you and me, be perfect. He's saying there is truth. There is a lifestyle of goodness, of justice, of kindness and compassion. That's very, very good. Now, you're right. You did a good job quoting Romans 7. Paul writes, the good that I want to do, I don't do. The evil I don't want to do, I do. Wretched man that I am, who's going to deliver me from this body of death? Thanks be to God through Jesus Christ. In other words, thanks you, Jesus, for your grace. Because I fall far short. But you see, sir, just because you don't know everything there is to know about biology, doesn't mean you better not bust tail. Study biology, and if you want to go on and get master's, PhD, postdoc, whatever, do it. All right? And the same thing with Christ. You're right, I'm a long way from being perfect, and I've been a follower of Christ for over 60 years. And I'm far short of perfect. But I'm going to keep growing. I know enough to keep growing. Right? The same way, hopefully, you know enough to keep studying biology. And you just don't say, well, because I can't know everything there is to know about biology, I'm going to stop studying. No. The search for truth is crucial.
Oh, I guess why is it crucial?
Because it's the only way you're going to grow as a human being. If you don't search for truth, be it scientific truth, biology, be it historical truth, U.S. history, African history, South American history, be it personal relationship about how to build a deep marriage, a quality family. I'm always learning how to love my wife better, to love my children better, because I don't do it right. I fall far short. I need help. And that's why I turn to Christ for help. Very similar to why I turn to professors to teach me about biology, because I don't know enough about biology. Does that make sense?
So I guess what you're saying is, no, we're never going to reach or attain perfection.
Right.
But we have a blueprint.
Yep.
In order to get there for the purpose of growing, because growing ensures that we have kind of, not exactly perfection, but we can kind of emulate, or I guess that foggy mirror that Paul talks about.
Yeah.
So that way, what's considered evil doesn't prevail, because in the face of what is true, I guess, if people don't know what's true, evil can just run terrain on people.
Yeah.
I guess racism and sexism and all that.
Exactly.
If you don't know what's true, you're going to be easily fooled, and then people's lifestyles will corrupt them and kill them in the end.
Bingo. And then to take it one step further, what is the ultimate problem in the world today? We got a lot of problems, but what's the ultimate bottom line problem?
Selfishness.
Very good.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, sweet. That's exactly what Jesus pointed out. The ultimate problem in this world is sin, and a very accurate way to describe sin is selfishness. Okay, so what's the solution?
Selflessness.
Selflessness. Very good.
But you can never be perfectly selfless.
Correct. You can never be perfectly selfless, but when you begin to experience the love of God, the acceptance of Christ, when you begin to experience the forgiveness of Christ, the grace of God, that begins to change your heart, your motives, your ambitions, and you change. And it's with His help. That's why, you see, if you look at the problems in the world today, I don't care if it's marriage, family, business, science, medicine, politics, national relationships between different nations, the problems come down to, ultimately, sin, selfishness. I want my way. Oh, you want your way? Fine, we'll go to war. Oh, I want my way, you want your way? Fine. I will force it down your throat to do it my way. And that just alienates people. But love and selflessness Christ says, that's what I want you to do, and then become a peacemaker instead of a warmonger, either relationally or with neighbors or against different nations.
And as far as like, since we're never going to be perfectly selfless,
Right.
those moments where we're selfish, like say, you know, everybody does things for vanity. You know, like the stylish clothes that we wear.
Yep.
You're doing it for yourself. You're not like the Bible says you're supposed to do everything for God, but like that seems kind of impossible because there's just innate things that we do as humans for vanity's sake.
Okay, but wait a second. I love your emphasis on selfishness, but don't misdefine that. Okay? Is it selfish for her to be dressed the way she is?
I guess it would depend on the person's motivation.
Okay, good. Very good. But I would argue no. She's a beautiful woman. She clothes herself in a stylish way. That is not selfishness. That's a celebration of the gift of a body that God has given her. Now, if she uses her beauty to manipulate men, if she turns a blind eye or a deaf ear to the cries of the starving and is not generous with some of her resources, then we got a problem, right?
Okay.
Make sense?
Yes.
Is it wrong to get an education? No.
No, like we said earlier.
Exactly. To get an education is to develop the mind that God gave you so that you can serve God by serving people better.
Okay.
Right?
That actually makes a lot of sense. But like I see in our culture, like how do you properly celebrate things like that? Because we don't.
That's exactly right. How do I celebrate her beauty with not getting into lust, manipulation, selfishness? Very good question. And the line can be pretty vague at times. And that's why we need God's Holy Spirit to change us, to grow us into better people. Because too often, I go over the line right into selfishness. So good to talk with you. Thank you so much for your line of thinking.
Thank you very much.
So, for me, it's just like that religion has not satisfied its burden of proof. So, I'm, like an empiricist. I'm like somewhat of a armchair scientist.
Okay? I think that's very dangerous. I don't think you can live that out. What I mean is this. Science tells me that if I drop cyanide into my grandma's tea and she drinks it, she will die.
Yes.
Right? Science does not answer the question, should I put cyanide in my grandma's tea in order to get her money? Science has no ability to answer that question.
Like the is from a not, like moral question is what you're saying. Yeah.
So that is why I don't think you can live out your worldview that says, I only live according to science. Science is a wonderful branch of knowledge, we agree on that, right? But when it comes to ethics, morality, priorities in life, ambition in life,
Well, I mean, I don't think science attempts to answer that, does it? I think that's more the
Exactly.
field of philosophy and ethics and
exactly.
I mean, there's plenty of religious exclusive ethical frameworks that people live by. They
Yeah.
live full lives. Now, I've had a number of these debates, so I'm sure you'll come at it being oh, there's no objective sort of,
Right?
Yes.
If there is no God, morality is relative,
Yeah. Subjective. Yeah.
which means if you say to love this person today is good, but next week you say to hate the person is good, you're not wrong, you're not right. It's just your choice. Choice is king, queen.
Do you think that it's not ethically and intellectually honest, though, to acknowledge that because of the lack of burden of proof that we don't have a religion that hasn't satisfied its burden of proof, that it's the case that it's more honest to just acknowledge that we create ethical frameworks?
Okay, but if you believe that we create our own ethics, then please don't judge my ethics.
I mean, I can judge it from the standpoint of my ethical framework, though.
Well, why would you do that?
So, for me personally, I'm kind of a utilitarian sort of
Yeah.
perspective, but that's kind of downstream of some more humanitarian principles that I have.
Yeah.
So, anything that disrupts that. And I feel like because we do live in a society, we do share living space and all this stuff, that it would be in most people's best interest to have an ethical framework that we can maximize happiness, and and I think that most people would agree. I mean, and I think that was naturally born out of the fact that we are like a social species, and the fact that we are a society and we work together and we've improved society. I think that most people would say that we are better off having a kind of like gravitated towards a utilitarian framework.
So the bloodiest century in human history was the 20th century, right?
Yeah.
Between Stalin, Mao, and Adolf Hitler, 3 atheists, we have about 100 million
Adolf
people
was
killed.
Adolf was not an atheist.
Really? What was he?
So he says many times that he's Christian, and he even like praised the Catholic Church. There's obviously like the historical context where the Catholic Church was tied into Nazi Germany, but he said many times that he was a follower of Jesus, and he said many times. Now,
No, he did not.
he did.
No, he didn't.
There is explicit quotes of this, but
Mein Kampf.
I'm not.
Just read Mein Kampf. And repeatedly in Mein Kampf, Hitler points out, no way is Jesus Christ valid. No way. Because he was a Jew. Jesus was a Jew. So you're trying to argue out here that Jesus, a Jew, was worshipped by Adolf Hitler? Sir, Hitler tried to exterminate Jews, not worship them. Repeatedly, Hitler tried to pull Christians, including Catholics, into his party. And yes, he did say some positive things about Catholicism and about Protestantism. But what becomes crystal clear is he murdered priests and ministers. He murdered Christians.
You're coming to a place of 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds, and acting like you know everything. And it's honestly kind of pathetic.
Okay? I have repeatedly said, I do not know. I have repeatedly said, if anybody claims to know everything, they're a naive fool. So I don't know where you get off telling me that I'm standing out here saying I know everything. I don't know everything. My knowledge is very limited. But I do know that I have a relationship with Jesus Christ. I'm a beggar who has found where living bread is in a personal relationship with Christ. And I've come to tell fellow beggars where they too can find bread in your own relationship with Jesus Christ. He loves you, man. He loves you more than anybody loves you.
Thank you for joining us for these few minutes. We'd like to personally invite you Sunday mornings to St. Paul's Episcopal Church, located in Darien at 9 a.m., or to Grace Farms at 10 a.m. in New Canaan, Connecticut. Check us out more online at www.gracecommunity.info to learn more.